Okay, this one I'm going to keep really quick. I just want to say a couple of words about the casting of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I am going to be talking about Man of Steel with some spoiler points, but let's just get right into it. There's been a lot of confusion, surprise, maybe even outrage. Obviously, a lot of people were talking Bryan Cranston, who would be a very awesome, but also kind of obvious choice for the part. This is a more unusual one. So I'm going to talk about the areas where it makes sense and the areas where it's a little bit more questionable. A little bit of context first, though. I did finally get around to seeing Man of Steel. They did what I had talked about before that I hoped they would do in terms of how a darker, grittier Superman would work. For the most part, what they did was gritty up the world and the setting around him. The character himself was kept fairly stalwart. Yes, he did end up killing Zod, which seems a little bit out of character for him, but I felt that that move was earned and it still made sense within the character as he was presented. Was it a perfect movie? Well, no. But as someone who enjoys Superman but is fully open to new interpretations, I liked it and thought for the most part it was successful in what it set out doing. Perfect? No, but definitely interesting. And the casting of Jesse Eisenberg is in that same mold. It's an interesting choice. And here's the area where we know he can pull this off. There are a few things that Lex Luthor, as we're used to seeing him, needs to convey. One of them is intelligence. Jesse Eisenberg can portray intelligence. That's basically why he got nominated for an Oscar when he played Mark Zuckerberg. He can really convey the raw intelligence of a character. Now, there's a few other things that he doesn't have, or at least we've never seen him have before. We are used to seeing Lex Luthor with an inherent sense of menace and intimidation, so that seems like a little bit of a stretch. In addition to that, his age is a little bit of a problem. He's about 30 years old, but there's a few problems. The first is the perception of him is rather younger than that, because he's had a tendency to play characters younger than he really is for quite a few years now, so the public perception of how old he is a little bit out of whack with his actual age. That's the first thing. But even if we buy him as being 30 years old, that seems a little bit young for what we're used to Lex Luthor being. Lex Luthor is not only a brilliant scientist, but he's also a tycoon. He basically runs Metropolis, and for a 30-year-old to have that degree of power seems a bit of a stretch. Now, that said, I'm saying all these things in the context of how we are used to Lex Luthor being portrayed. There could have already been changes to the character and the writing that make Jesse Eisenberg make more sense and fit as a character. And I'll be interested to see if that's the case, or if he can actually stretch his acting chops enough to give us something closer to the Lex Luthor that we are used to seeing. They're making choices that may not always work and are clearly upsetting the purists, but they're definitely interesting choices and they're bold choices, and I applaud them for that. In a lot of people's mind, this is the second bit of questionable casting after Ben Affleck. I don't see where Ben Affleck was a problem. People have been holding Daredevil against him for way too long. Given his output lately, just let it go. It does seem a little bit like they're overloading this movie, and that worries me slightly. We've got Superman, we've got Batman, they've cast a Wonder Woman, Batman's gonna be in it enough that we're gonna have Alfred, and now we've got Lex Luthor. I am getting a little bit worried about just sheer overload, but again, one thing it's not going to be is uninteresting. And on that basis alone, I will be there to see how they pull it off, if they pull it off. Hope you will too. And until next time, council is adjourned.